suddenly started getting interested in Sanskrit and marriage and whatnot. You know, there's a saying that there's a tide in the affairs of men. So that's what's happened to me. My son, as Sri Prakash mentioned, was studying in Michigan, and he got his MS degree. And the day he got his MS degree, the next day he got a job. The very next day, he called us and said, I want to live with this friend of mine, girlfriend of mine, American. So we said, no, you can't, we don't like all this. If you want, you can get married to her. But living together is not done. Luckily for us, her people turned out to be very, very nice people who also had the same idea that they should get married. So in 2002, we had a church wedding in Ohio. At that time, my sambandhis, they said, why don't you give us a nice quote from your Sanskrit scriptures on marriage so that we can put it in our invitation. Unfortunately, like most people, I never knew anything about marriage rituals and all that, and I couldn't give them anything. And that sort of triggered an interest in me. And they also said, let's have a Hindu wedding in India. So they came to India in 2003. We had a traditional Hindu wedding here. So at that time I thought, why not study and make research, do research in it and all that. And my inspiration at that time was my friend Jagannivas, who after a long career in pharmaceutical industry did his MA in Vaishnavism and went on to take a doctorate in Vaishnavism. Not only that, his wife Padma is also submitted her dissertation. So I said, if Jagannivas can do it, who's senior to me in age, why not I? So I went to the university, and the first person I met was Dr. S. Revati, and she was teaching Nyaya, logic in the university. And I told her this is it and all that, and she said, oh, why don't you apply? So I applied. After a couple of months, there was an interview. Dr. Padmanabhan, Dr. Narasimhan, and Sinirudh Das was the head of the department at that time. They said, all right, you can join a full-time course in MA Sanskrit. At that time, I was winding up my industry also to 2003, because though I'm a very close friend of R.T. Chari, who is a past master at making money, I never got the hang of it, so I think he didn't teach me. I was not close enough probably, so. Anyway, so it turned out that I sold my factory and all that and took up full-time MA degree. And 2 years later I got my degree in MA. Then I applied for registration for PhD. It took me 1 year more. So then they said, it started. Then where do you start? How many people know where the rituals are mentioned in scriptures and where are they, what is the root, how did it all come about? Then of course my professors, they guided me. They said you should study Dharma Shastras. Then Dr. Padmanabhan put me on to Vedangas. So then after doing a little bit of research, I realized that you could classify our whole scriptures into two. One is secular, another is scriptural. So the secular is your dramas like Shakuntala and Subhashitas and Kavyas and Kadambaris and all that. The scriptural literature is Shrutis, that which is heard, that is Vedas. And Shrutis are supposed to be revealed texts and not written by man. They say Anadi and Apaurusheya, not written by man, and it is without any beginning. And apart from Shrutis, the 4 Vedas are Shrutis, there are 4 Upavedas. Then you have Smritis. Smritis is that which is remembered. So those who had, the Maharshis who had learned the Vedas, They wrote Smritis. You have Manusmriti, Parashara Smriti, so many Smritis, about 18 in. Then we have what is called, the other scriptural traditions are Agamas and Darshanas. Darshanas are philosophies, Agamas are there. And then you have Puranas. There are 18 Puranas, there are Upa-Puranas, there are so many other things. Then the thing is that you have something called Vedangas. There are 6 Vedangas. Vedangas are Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Chandas, Jyotisha, and Shiksha. Shiksha is phonetics, etymology, Chandas is meter, Jyotisha is astronomy, and Kalpa is ritual, Vyakarana is grammar. And of all these, Kalpa is the one which deals with rituals. So in Kalpa Shastra, there are 4 particular divisions: Shrauta Shastra, Grihya Shastra, Shulba Shastra, and Dharma Sutra. Actually, they are all in sutra form, aphorisms. And the Grihya Sutras depict what is to be done, rituals for a householder. So there are samskaras or sacraments which are specified in these Kalpa Sutras. There were about 48 samskaras originally as per Gautama Dharma Sutra, but which were then whittled down to 16, what we call Shodasha Samskaras. The Shodasha Samskaras begin with Garbhadana to Antyeshti, which is funerals. All the other things like Namakarana, Chaula, Keshanta, Samavartana, Vivaha, Upanayana, all that come, that is Shodasha Samskaras. And Vivaha, the marriage, is considered the most important of the samskaras, because our system of classification, if you take the ashramas, that is, you have the brahmacharya, grihastha-ashrama, vanaprastha-ashrama, and sannyasa. In grihastha-ashrama, you are supposed to give full attention to earning a living, getting married, producing children. It's a duty to produce children. So in grihastha-ashrama, you are supposed to follow these samskaras. So, all right, so I started looking around to start collecting Grihya Sutras. Grihya Sutras, there are 4 Vedas, they have different branches. And each branch, Rishis have written Grihya Sutras. So if you take Rig Veda, there is Ashvalayana, Shankhayana, Kaushitaki. If you take Shukla Yajurveda, there is Paraskara, Vaijavapa. If you take Krishna Yajurveda, there are 9 different Grihya Sutras, Apastamba, Bodhayana, Hiranyakeshi, so many are there. Manava, Varaha, Vadula, Vaikanasa. Then Samaveda, there are 4, Jaimini, Gobila, Gautama. And Atharva Veda, there is only 1. Many of the texts are lost. These are all extant Grihya Sutras. In fact, in Grihya Sutras, in Rig Veda, there is supposed to be a Parashara Grihya Sutra and a Paingya Grihya Sutra. Those texts are lost now. So then I thought, it's such a vast subject, what do I do? How do I go about doing this research? Then I said, let me start collecting the Grihya Sutras. It was not an easy job because most people are following certain branches of Vedas only. If you take South Indian Yajurvedis, most of them are Apastamba or Bodhayana. Very few Manava or Agnivesha or Kataka or Varaha. So I started moving around. I spent quite a bit of time in Bhandarkar Research Institute in Pune. There I was able to find many Grihya Sutras. I got photocopies of them. There's also Vedic Samshodhan Mandal in Pune, which gave me a lot of and then I went to Thiruvananthapuram. Then one big place where I got a lot of help was Mattur near Shimoga in Karnataka, which is supposed to be a Sanskrit village, but there, the people are so traditionally, they are very, very scholarly. And there one gentleman, Venkatesh Avadhani, he got me Bharadwaja Grihya Sutra, and he also helped me translate Bodhayana Grihya Sutra. So what I did after collecting 18 Grihya Sutras, I took out the Vivaha Samskara part of it. The Grihya Sutras deal with all the samskaras. Vivaha Samskara part of it, and decided to do a comparative study. So a lot of Western scholars like Minternates and Olderman and so many other people have done a lot of work on it. Some translations are available. So I was able to collect a lot of this and got the translations done with help from so many people, and then did a comparative study. So the whole gamut of rituals of concerning marriage I was able to get hold of. What was really revealing was that marriage was a very, very simple affair during Vedic times. The most important ritual was Panigrahana, holding of hands. And later on the things got getting added on to it. Saptapadi, Ashmarohana, Laja Homa, Agni Parinayana, Griha Pravesha, Kanyadana, all that came later. In fact, you would be surprised to know that Mangalya Dharana, the Tadi, is not a Vedic rite at all. It is, according to P.V. Kane, who has written the history of Dharmashastras, it has been adopted from South Indian tribal customs. In fact, even now, there are many North Indian communities who don't observe the Tadi ritual. So, it was a very, very fascinating thing to do this research, and I was able to meet so many scholars from all over the world, all over India. And as Sri Prakash mentioned, when I went to Ann Arbor to visit my son, I went to the Michigan State, University of Michigan Library. There I could find all Sanskrit texts, those which we could not find here, they were there. The head of the Sanskrit department is one Madhav Deshpande, an Indian, and he helped me. So I was able to get a lot of texts from there, and I could get photocopies. And so it's been a fascinating study. And what is amazing is that from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, the basic rituals have been retained. So the Panigrahana, Saptapadi, Ashmarohana, Raja Homa, all those are retained. And one beautiful thing about it is most of the rituals are loaded in favor of the bride. And the bridegroom has to make a lot of promises. I mean, even in Kanyadana, he says, Dharmecha, Artecha, Kamecha, Naticha Rami. So I will not transgress her wishes in dharma, artha, or earning money, or in desires. So I remember last time I had made a PowerPoint presentation, and Balasubramaniam and his wife, Balasubramaniam was absent, his wife came to me and said, I never knew that Bala promised all this, and I will go and find out. Next day, Balasubramaniam tells me, it was all in Sanskrit, I didn't know what to. If I had known, I would not have given. Anyway, in the north, the Saptapadi, which is supposed to be straight steps to be taken, it will become Sat Fere now. And of course, because of social factors and people wanting to show off, so many other things have been added on. Kashi Yatra is a later addition. So many other things have come in. And now even South Indian weddings have Sangeet and... but the basic wedding ceremony can be done probably in about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, nothing more. So a lot of things are this thing. But when I started writing this, when I submitted the publisher DK Printworld, I had sent him a copy, and he thought that there is potential in this book to become a reference kind of book. So what I have done in this book is I have given an overview of the scriptures and samskaras and texts of all Grihya Sutras concerning Vivaha Samskara with translations. Then a comparative study of differences in order, differences in this thing. And then full mantras, Vivaha mantras of all Grihya Sutras are given in this text, which was a difficult thing to get. So, because many people, traditional people I contacted, they were not able to tell me where they could get the mantras from. So I was lucky to collect all that. And of course, one thing I find that there is a big gap between the traditional scholars and the academia. I think that should be bridged. Probably it will be a good thing if English is taught in Veda Pathshalas. So, because they can learn English and refer to other texts also. Because people like Venkatesh Avdani, he doesn't know English, but he's such a scholar, all his knowledge is within him because he cannot express in English. So that is the kind of thing. So thank you very much. I hope this book will become a reference point, and I'm very happy that a fellow Tanjore Maharashtrian, Mr. Vittal, has agreed to release the book. He immediately agreed, and I'm really grateful to him that this distinguished personality is releasing the book. Thank you.
Before Mr. Vittal releases the book, a few words about him. He's one of the most distinguished officers of the IAS, which he joined in 1960 and served for 36 years. In fact, Business Today magazine rated him as one of the 50 people who contributed the most to India's development. The two big successes of the Indian economy are in IT and telecommunications, and Mr. Vittal played a vital role in both. He was secretary in the Department of Electronics for 6 years and the chairman of the Telecom Communication in 1993-94. He initiated the software technology parks that are famous today. He also helped liberalize the telecom sector. After his IAS career, he was appointed chairman of the Public Enterprises Selection Board. He made the public sector more efficient and competitive and less bureaucratic. But he is mainly known to laymen as an anti-corruption warrior. In 1998, he was appointed as the Central Vigilance Commissioner. He brought greater visibility, credibility, and effectiveness to this office. He used IT to combat corruption, perhaps for the first time in the world. He has written on a wide range of issues, regularly for the Economic Times, Mumbai Mirror, New Indian Express. He has authored more than a dozen books. These include The Red Tape Gorilla, Information Technology, India's Tomorrow, Corruption in India, and Maharashtrians in Tamil Nadu. He has received many awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award of DataQuest in 2004. And he is also a scholar on Hinduism. I've heard him speak on the subject with great distinction. A few words about Dr. S. Padmanabhan, who will receive the first copy. He's a professor of Sanskrit in Madras University. He has been connected with several academic bodies. He has been the chairman of the Board of Studies of Madurai Kamaraj University, Bharatiyar University, and so on. He's the author of as many as 7 books, and 3 more books are in the pipeline. The second copy will be received by Mr. R.T. Chari, with whom you are familiar, and he's the person who has made the Tag Center available to us. Now, the release of the book. I request Dr. Padmanabhan to say a few words. Respected Chief Guest of the evening, Sri Vittal, my dear good friend,
Dr. Anil Kumar, Sri Arti Chari, Mr. Madhu, Mr. Sri Prakash, Mr. Rajan, my good friends, Dr. Godavish Mishra, Dr. Amal Das, Dr. Krishnamachari, Mr. Jagan Nivas, members of the Madras Book Club, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very good evening to all of you. I got the invitation only 2 days back, though it was sent to me some days back by Mr. Anil Kumar. He came in person to deliver the invitation and requested that I should receive the first copy. And only after coming over here, I came to know that I have to speak something about the book. Before talking about the book, I congratulate Dr. Anil Kumar for this venture, because I know him not as an industrialist, but as a serious student of Sanskrit. We should thank his son for motivating him to take up this topic. As soon as he joined his postgraduate program, he was keen only on this subject, though there were several other areas to pursue with. He was very particular about this topic and was asking about all this. He had that analytical mind even while he was doing his MA program. And this interest sustained him to carry on further, and today we see that effort in the form of his book. We, in our country today, follow certain customary practices without knowing the real value of that. But we are not aware of the rich hairy past. The reason is that we have not delved deep into a traditional system of education. For instance, he spoke about some of the samskaras. We know what is the samskara. What does the word mean, samskara? Many of us do not understand the implication of it. These sacraments or samskaras distinguishes the human being from other living beings. We know in our tradition that there are these sacraments only to unite people and not separate them. What we see in the Western world today, and unfortunately that practice is also creeping into our system. So a samskara is a purificatory rite, or what we can technically call it as a ceremonial purification, which makes us eligible to the next stage of life. To quote Sri Ramanuja, samskara means uttara karya anukula karanam. It provides us an eligibility to the next stage of life. Without doing this samskara, the previous rite, one is not eligible to do the next activity at all. So he quoted about 40 and odd samskaras, in which only 16 are in vogue today. And these samskaras is not for all types of people. Only certain are eligible and others are restricted with some samskaras. Among these samskaras, what we practice today, the most important is the Vivaha Samskara. And without knowing the real purpose behind, we are practicing this samskara in a monotonous way, and only the social custom remain. The values are lost. And in this age, I think such books, such attempts are necessary to understand our tradition and value behind that. In this regard, Dr. Anil Kumar's book assumes a great importance. And what can I say about that? I was really amazed at his interest and his eagerness to bring out that as a publication. Many of our students, after their completion, they simply forget about that. And we, in our academic community, say the purpose of research is to contribute to knowledge, to enhance knowledge, and also contribute to society. This is what Dr. Anil Kumar has exactly done today, and I congratulate him and hope that he will continue to serve in this life. He was a shining example that even at advanced age, one can acquire knowledge. And he has opened the gate of the academic institutions, and anybody who is interested in such areas can come and join and learn. What we say, there is an adage in Sanskrit, Ajara Amravat Prajnaha Vidyam Artham Cha Sadayet. While learning, one has no age, and anybody can acquire knowledge at that stage. I salute Dr. Anil Kumar and wish him all success. Thank you very much.
Mr. R.T. Chari will speak.
Good evening, namaskaram. He said I'm going to speak, I'm going to tell a few words. That's what I was asked to do. People who know me may wonder what I have to do with a book containing almost 3/4 of Sanskrit words. You know, from the Southern Heritage lectures, I am against the Tamil scholars, Tamil elite, who are so good in English and Sanskrit, but refuse to show their talent in their mother tongue, Tamil. So my first 100 lectures, I was definitely avoiding introducing anything to do with Sanskrit. But then, two of my friends, one Anil Kumar, Dr. Anil Kumar now, and Dr. Pappu Venugopal Rao, they patiently told me how important for an Indian Sanskrit is. And so from 101st lectures, I started introducing Sanskrit subjects. Still I don't know, I cannot speak Sanskrit. Anil Kumar is my good friend. He took it as one of his mission to convert me into a guy who appreciates art and other things. Regularly he used to take me to places where somebody will write a poem on a painting. Somebody will do a painting on a poem. And suddenly a lot of speakers having a black dress with a sort of a rope in their hip will stand in different places and read some English from books which I could never understand. He did many things. But in return, I told him I will teach him how to make money. But both of us miserably failed. But one thing, because of his associates, I think, I learned to appreciate and enjoy Carnatic music, which took a lot of my time in the recent years. And also I started, with the help of Mr. Madhu, Southern Heritage Lectures, where predominantly we highlight the various aspects of South India. In fact, when he was doing his doctorate, when we talked to him about that, I told him, please tell me in a language I can understand. If I understand, then your theory or your study is worthwhile. So I agreed to give a talk on his subject in Tech Center, and I prepared a 40-page book in simple English so that mortals like me can understand. The books are available with me. Whoever buys the main book from Anil Kumar, please come to me. I will give this supplement to you, which can be used to persuade the youngsters in your family so that when they read it, they will get interested in getting to know more and more. I congratulate Anil for doing this work, and I am sure that he cannot keep quiet. People call master of all trades. He is one of them. He is not a jack, he is a master of all trades. And I am sure that he will do on more subject. Thank you.
Mr. N. Vittal will review the book.
Dr. Anil Kumar, Dr. Padmanabhan, Mr. Chari, Mr. Madhu, Mr. R.B. Rajan, Mr. Sri Prakash, and my dear friends. I'm very grateful to the organizers for inviting me to release the book. In fact, they say fools rush where angels fear to tread, and I'm afraid I have committed such an act of rushing to places where knowledgeable people will be hesitating to tread. And in fact, Valluvar has given us the warning, Kalladavarum naninallar, Kattlar mun solladirikkapperin. But then what gives me the confidence that I can come and release a book on this, on a subject? I am not a scholar in Sanskrit. To release a book, and not only, I think Madhu said I have to review the book. You see, that's because I happen to be a member of the generalist service called the Indian Administrative Service. Dr. Anil Kumar is a doctorate, and we know very much that he is an engineer. You see, the engineers are known as specialists, experts, whereas chaps like me are known as generalists. Then how is it that we tend to also occupy a number of totally different places, and a polymath, a poly-expert like Dr. Anil Kumar has just demonstrated, and as Dr. Ranganathan, Dr. Padmanabhan said, as the old Sanskrit shloka goes, there is no age to learning and so on. Now, what is it that, how is it we manage in the generalist, and how is it that an expert like Dr. Anil Kumar or specialists like scholars like Dr. Padmanabhan manage? The difference is they take any subject and go deep into it and study. Chaps like us, we have realized ignorance is strength, because you are posted in many places and given responsibility, and you are supposed to deliver. So how to combine, how to get this possible? And I think the difference is that if you are conscious of the fact that you are ignorant, then you adopt the attitude of a perpetual pupil. So all the time, when you are aware you are ignorant, how do you learn? You learn from others. Udayar mun illar bol ekatrum kattar kadayare kalladavar is what Valluvar says. Like a beggar who goes and begs from people who have the money. So that is the way to learn. But in the IAS, there is a great risk. A combination of ignorance plus authority is a very dangerous combination. Because you have got the power, you think you know the subject. See, it is not. So I realized it early in my life because I joined IAS when Kennedy became the president way back in 1960, and he was the first president of the United States born in the 20th century, and he was making his cabinet. And after his November election, he asked Bob McNamara, to become his defense secretary. Bob McNamara said, look, you want me to become the defense secretary in the Pentagon? I don't know anything about the defense of the United States. Then Kennedy told him, look, I have never been president of the United States either. So we have to learn on the job. Then McNamara did something which inspired me. I read this in a book published in I read this in 1969, 1000 Days, John Kennedy in the White House by Osler Schlesinger Jr., who was again from the Kennedy brought a whole lot of chaps from Harvard, and it was called the Great Camelot and so on. So when I read this book and this passage about Bob McNamara, I realized I am like Bob McNamara. Not that I am so competent, but I am also equally ignorant on some of the responsibilities given to me. Those days, I was Director of Accounts and Treasuries in Gujarat, and 1969 I had done 9 years in service. I joined in 60. So I said, why not I also repeat what McNamara did? What McNamara did? When he became Defense Secretary, he sent questionnaires to different generals, asking specific questions in such a way that if a Japanese general had received them, he would have committed harakiri. So when I read this, I also did send questionnaires. Not that anybody committed harakiri, but there are 120 officers in my department of accounts and treasuries, and I asked them basic questions. What is the objective of this organization? Do you think we are reaching these objectives, realizing them? What are your problems? What is your talent? Is it being used? Have you any ideas about how we can improve? What is the scope for corruption? And how we can check this? That's some half a dozen questions. And I want reply within 1 month. So out of that 120, I think maybe about 15-20% replied. I read that, and by reading that, I came to know what people are feeling and what are the problems. Otherwise, what is our government culture is highly hierarchical. As you go higher and higher in life, only a few people, your number 2, number 3 only have got access to you. So you become, you are followed by chamchas, and as a result, you get what you are only operating in an echo chamber. People, now you see what has happened to the in our politics. So different leaders, you can see how they get mesmerized in their own cocoon. But you can break through this by using this McNamara method. From 1969 till I retired finally as the Central Vigilance Commissioner in 2002, that was 1998 I was appointed, I adopted the same technique. Any job I got, the first week I used to shoot this questionnaire. When I became Chairman Telecom Commission, there were 5,000 engineers in the whole department. I sent to all of them questionnaires of this type. And that gave me a great feedback. So many thought I was not reading. In fact, I remember the Police Commissioner of Ahmedabad when I became additional chief secretary home, I had sent questionnaire to 700 of them, and the commissioner saw me reading. Sorry, you were reading them. He thought it was some sort of a publicity stunt, to say, getting the. But by reading, I realized that you put me in any job, within the first 2 months, I would have come to know what are the main issues. And the other thing is, you realize normally how do you grow in any job? All files are new, you have to learn, and then it takes some time for you to act. So normally, therefore, I used to call it the Nescafe approach. The best coffee is, we know in Chennai, we not the best coffee is our filter coffee, and you know how much time it takes, how technique. But if you are in a hurry, you go for Nescafe. So in the case of an IAS officer, he is supposed to be effective from the day you put him in the job. So how to have instant effectiveness, like instant coffee, and this was my technique. And this is how I learned in the process. And I always know I am given jobs about which I don't know anything, but I have to deliver results. So that is the technique I have been following. So I came here and releasing a book done by a Sanskrit PhD and received by another the Pandit who, and this comes because of, as I said, I realized the strength of ignorance, and I have tried to see how ignorance itself becomes strength. So we come to this, the difference between the basic approach of an IAS officer and the engineer's approach. But what is important is that there is no end to knowledge, and the same thoroughness with which Dr. Anil Kumar goes about any job they take, they go into detail. My handwriting is not legible even to me these days, but I can take it as a rule, all engineers have beautiful handwriting because they have to specialize in drawing and all that. So incidentally, they say doctors' signatures are also not legible because only the compounder or the medical shopman can understand it. But in case of mine, for example, as you go higher and higher up, you don't write minimal, you just sign, and handwriting it becomes bad. So this, using this, I appreciate Dr. Anil Kumar's interest, and that brings us to the other issue. In the end, I think Dr. Padmanabhan referred to this detailed knowledge of the rituals, etc. What is the use? How does it help you? In fact, the last shloka of the Bhagavad Gita, I think, suggests the best method of combining vision with action. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara. Where Yogeshwara Krishna represents divine vision. Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Partha the Arjuna, the archer, is the professional. When both are combined, what happens? Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatta Shri, their wealth accumulates. Vijayo Bhuti, success comes. Dhruva Nithir Majnava, Nithi is justice. So when you combine vision with action, you get wealth, you get success, and also justice. So this is the ultimate aim we should do. And now this is appropriately releasing a book on Vivaha. And after all, Vivaha, we have been told that it represents a purification, sacrament, etc. As I see, ultimately, in a Vivaha, a bride and a bridegroom come together and live their whole life. And whatever may happen, this combination, this coming together and setting up, they set up a family and then tradition continues. Now here, appropriately, this program itself, this organization of this program itself, represents a Vivaha between the Rotary Club, we have got the Rotary Club, Madras Book Club, and our tax center, Charis organization. Now this shows that coming together is a source by which things grow, and this also represents how knowledge grows, which is well known in that invocation, one of the daily prayers we have. It is Sahanam Vavatu, let us come together. Sahanam Bhunaktu, let us enjoy together. Sahaviryam Karavavahai, let our mental strength, intellectual strengths come together. Here these three organizations, the book club, the Rotary Club and the Tax Center, have each one of their own strengths. But all these strengths have come together, and what happens? Now we have to avoid two dangers when these different organizations come together. There are two dangers. Ma with Vishavahai. Now I don't know the separation, I have been told by experts. So this can be split. Sandhi, in Sanskrit, Sandhi is very important. In that is, you must avoid the Visha, the poison of misunderstanding, and we should not create hatred. Dvesha should not be there. If you avoid hatred and avoid the poison of misunderstanding, then get peace and prosperity. Sahanam vavatu, sahanam bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinam vaditamastu mavid vishavahai, om shanti shanti shanti. I wish this book all success, and I think Dr. Anil Kumar has rendered a great service to the current generation of what he has done. In fact, what Vivekananda and other great leaders of our Indian tradition have said, that is, we are inheritors of a great tradition, we should not forget. But at the same time, rituals have their place. Rituals gave a sense of coming together. For those people who are involved in that particular sacrament, there is something to remember by and celebrate. That is the significance of rituals. Now, therefore, I think these days it has become very fashionable to send everybody by email these greeting cards and others. Now, what meaning is there? Just press one button and thousands of fellows are getting this. Does it have any meaning behind this? More and more we have got technology, less and less human we are becoming. But to the extent we realize the importance of them, and at the same time let us not forget what this book has been released. It can also become a marriage, excellent presentation book in future marriages, especially because nowadays I find a lot of the NRI marriages are taking place. And what they do is, I remember one, I think it was a son's marriage of Jairaj, who happens to be my nephew, is an IAS officer in Karnataka. He got that Mathur, who was in Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Mathur Krishnamurti, to give a talk about the significance of each ritual, and then the marriage proceeded. So it was a running commentary sort of thing. So everybody could appreciate, and they were all given booklets. And this is becoming a standard. In many of the NRI, they give a booklet also about what are the slokas. So I think instead of giving the booklet, you can give the book itself, so that this has a ready market so far as the future marriages are concerned. So I think both from the commercial point of view, market point of view, preservation of a tradition point of view, this book carries a great message of our ancient tradition and its continuous adjustment to the future, because as we know, as old Tamil poems go, Padayana Kalidalum, Pudiyana Pudalam, Valluvala Kala Vagenali. Thank you very much. I hope I finished my time. Thank you.
Before I propose the vote of thanks, I would like to request Lieutenant Sri Prakash on behalf of the Rotary Club of Madras South to present a memento to Mr. Vittal. I would like to request Lieutenant R.B. Rajan to present a memento on behalf of the club to Dr. Padmanabhan. Mr. Anil Kumar would like to present a memento to Mr. R.T. Chari. I would first like to thank Anil Kumar for coming to Chennai and launching the book here. I'm sure it will lead to a better understanding of the complex rituals that are a part of our weddings. I would like to thank Mr. Vittal for sparing